Hello, Scott. Welcome to the 50 State Haunt.
Hey, Brent, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting little mini series we got going on.
You want to tell them about what we're doing?
Yeah, I can. So basically, the 50 state haunt is going to be a wheel-based draw on all 50 states in the United States. Whatever the wheel lands on is what we are going to cover in terms of haunted or lore places. We plan on probably doing, two, three, maybe four places a piece. It's going to be a short podcast, just something to kind of get you guys through to the next podcast. You have anything else to add to that, Brent?
Putting fillers out. See how y'all like spooky places, haunted places. Same thing Scott said. Some of them will be more of lore based than haunts. But yeah, just put it out there and see how y'all feel about it. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. When we get done with this, we'll probably bring it up again. But any of the places that we go, if you have your own scary story, haunted story from these places, please put them in the comments. Share them with us. We'd love to read them. Very first state, Scott, is
It's going to be Kentucky,
Kentucky.
the bluegrass state.
So I have actually got three places for Kentucky this time. One of my stories I think is pretty neat. One's kind of lore-ish, and the other one is what it is. So I've covered a little bit of history on each one of these sites and a little bit of the ghost story or lore that goes along with them. I will leave the addresses, phone numbers, websites of any of these that I go over also will be in the show notes. So if anybody would like to visit these places, then the information will be there. Scott, would you like to kick this thing off with one of yours?
Yeah, man, I absolutely will. I'm gonna. My first one's gonna be a very known haunted place that most folks in the United States already know about. It's been featured in so many paranormal TV shows, and it's called the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. So the Waverly Hills Sanatorium was actually opened in 1910 to house victims of the tuberculosis epidemic. At that time, tuberculosis was killing people at a rapid rate because they didn't know what was causing it, how it was spreading. They didn't know anything about TB. This building has housed over 63,000 deaths, including patients, doctors, nurses, and staff. Some died of the disease, others committed suicide. There were so many deaths, they took the dead out through a tunnel deemed the Death Tunnel, which a low-budget film was written about. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's okay. Ghosts seem to wander every inch of this building throughout the day and night. That's what's kind of crazy about this. It doesn't, most paranormal places you want to go at night because you're going to see most paranormal activity at night. No, this is day and night. Waverly has been the focus of many local and tourist attractions. Even the people that live in Kentucky, they'll go to Waverly, multiple times throughout the year just for it. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, I'll give Brent the actual address of this, but it's pretty cool because you can actually go there. You can pay for a guide, and they'll let you bring your own paranormal equipment. They'll let you bring your own cameras, whatever you have. You can actually bring in there. You can stay the night in the sanatorium or in one of their many houses that are actually built on the premises there. The good thing about this place is that it has somewhat been maintained and stabilized so that people can take guided tours during the day, whether that be a paranormal guide or a historical guide. They actually have two different forms of guides there. You can arrange a private investigation when you're doing these guides, which is pretty freaking cool if you ask me. Not many places do this. Many people state that they experience tons of paranormal activity here, including the complete feeling of sorrow, sadness, and illness once they step foot into the doors. Waverly Hills is to be known amongst tons of other locations, one if not the most paranormal location in America. With the amount of tuberculosis patients and malpractice that partook in the hospital, you can only imagine the things that would have happened in those doors at the time.
Wasn't this one of the places where lobotomies? Wasn't this one of the places where lobotomies were really big? And
yes, I think this is one of the places where they actually started doing them.
That's the same thing I was kind of trying to remember. I was thinking that it was. Also, I want to add to your, what'd you say, no, the death chute?
The Death Tunnel.
Death Tunnel. So I think if I remember correctly on Waverly Hills, the Death Tunnel was also, I don't know if it was a dumbwaiter. And I don't, you know what a dumbwaiter is?
I know what a dumbwaiter is.
Okay. Well, do you want to tell the people what the dumbwaiter is in case they don't know?
I mean, I can, but you go for it because you're probably a little more educated on how to explain it.
So a dumbwaiter is kind of like in buildings that had multiple floors, they would have a tunnel that went from ground level up to said floors, and each one of them, think of it as a elevator for stuff. It wasn't like a doorway. Some of them were big enough that you could put a person could get in it, but it is a pulley system. It would have a rope, and the beginnings of them would have a rope. You pull the rope, it just pulls the box inside of this place up and down to each one of the floors. Doors open up, you could get it out. So if you needed to move food, if you needed to move supplies or anything, instead of running them up and down the stairs, you put it in the dumbwaiter, send it up, somebody takes it out.
Correct.
And if I remember correctly, at Waverly Hills, that death chute at one point in time was the way that they moved food up and down. And I don't know if it was something that continued to do that, and it was a death chute and a dumbwaiter at the same time or not.
I don't know. That would actually be pretty interesting to read about.
That was one of the things I can remember from Waverly Hills that I always thought was very interesting myself.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I got one statement from somebody that went there to do a paranormal investigation who went alone.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who it was or where I got the quote, but it's not really a quote. It's more in my words of what he said. He basically said, if you decide to go to the sanatorium, don't go alone. You always need to bring someone with you or have a guide take you, because even though you know where you're at, you'll get turned around and lost because of the spirits misleading you and turning you around all the time.
That's interesting.
Right. He said he remembers walking through the front door, going down a corridor, going up the stairs, and he wound up having to go up the stairs again to get back out.
Oh, that's wicked.
That's crazy, isn't it?
I love stories like that.
So I'll let you take the next one, actually, because I think you've got a pretty interesting one coming up too.
All right. I'm going to go on my first one. I'm going to go with a little simple one. This is called Camp Taylor. This was a military camp. It's a small community that was southeast of Louisville. It was a former military camp that started in the early 1900s. The spot that they chose for Camp Taylor, it was chosen because this spot was so close to a large artillery range, and that actual spot is the spot that would later become Fort Knox.
Really?
So,
pretty interesting.
Camp Taylor was a highly sought after base that soldiers wanted to go to also because of its amenities. They had letters from soldiers that were there where they was happy about. They always had meals to eat, clean beds. They had, it was a very nice base to be on at that point in time.
Wasn't this where they staged the Confederate and back in the Civil War era and things?
That I do not know.
Or is it a different? I think it might be a different base I'm thinking about.
It could have been. Watch on me. There is a place in Kentucky where one of the biggest Civil War battles were actually fought, but I don't remember if it was right there or not. So with Camp Taylor, people wanted to go there. It's a very nice base. People wanted to go there. But in 1917 and 1918 is when the flu pandemic came through. So when you was talking about yours, you had tuberculosis come through. Now we got the flu pandemic. So the flu pandemic hit the base and hit it hard. At one point in time during that, it was recorded that there was around 1,000 people died within a 3-week period of time on that base from the flu. So that's just a little bit of history of it. I mean, obviously we could go deep into the history of this place, but let's just go with a couple little stories. There are claims that if you go around Camp Taylor now, people have seen soldiers roaming the streets. They've seen soldiers in the neighborhoods that are around there. There is also another ghost that people see. It is a woman. She is dressed in Victorian era dress, a blue dress, and she wanders the streets. It's said that if you do see her, that you would know her. She would have the blue dress on, Victorian era. She'll have blonde hair. And if you see her, she will see you, and she'll turn around and give you an ice cold glare, and then apparently go away. Well, some of the other ghosts that are seen are not just a soldier walking around, but formations of soldiers. They've seen them in formation, marching down the streets, marching out in fields, different things like that. And a lot of the camp has been dismantled at this point, but the larger buildings that were taken down of the camp, the wood that was from those buildings was repurposed into making some of the houses and all that actually occupy the neighborhoods there now. I don't know exactly what buildings still stand there till this day, but there's still stuff out there. So same thing. If anybody lives around there, if you got y'all's ghost stories, because I know we got some amateur ghost hunters out here. If any of them, if you've been to Camp Taylor and you got stories, we'd love to hear them. Put them in the comments. Would you like to take the next one?
Yeah, Brent, I'll actually take over this next one. So this one's more of a lore versus a haunted place. However, it is a little haunted. I think mainly just because of the sheer amount of people that's died here. I would say, it's led mainly legend and lore. This is called the Pope Lick Monster. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I have not heard of it.
It's actually been seen in many shows and things of that nature. It's classified as a goat man.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Pope Lick Bridge?
Yes,
right?
Pope Lick,
Yes.
the Pope Lick Trestle.
Trestle. Okay. Yeah.
It's been known that he would lure people into his clutches as long as residences of that area in Louisville can remember. He's said to mimic children and lure his victims to their death or disappearance. The earliest appearances were said to be on Pope Lick Trestle Bridge, and many have actually died on the bridge in pursuit of the monster. Which, just think about that. It's kind of weird how you try to find this monster and you just die or vanish.
Is the bridge still in use?
Yes, the bridge is.
Bridge?
Yes, it is. If you plan on searching at any point for this quote unquote legend, keep an eye on the creek, as a lot of the residences around that area would say. The bridge area is very dangerous to search, mainly because there's no way to get off of it except to jump.
And that's happened to people before, I think.
Yes, it has.
So is this the one that authority figures, local government, something like that they put up fences around the bridge?
Yeah, I'll get to that. Yes. For quite some time, the legend of the Goat Man has been known to wander the Pope Lick Trestle and Pope Lick Creek. And this is a couple stories about the hybrid man. One of the stories is that he lived on top of the trestle and he would use hypnosis or voice mimicry to lure victims to the top. A train would come and it would strike the victim. While some suggest that the sight of the monster is so disturbing that they would jump off the 100-foot trestle, which has nothing underneath it except hard ground, which, I mean, it leads to their demise.
So where's this creek at in relation to this?
I think they said it's just, it doesn't run adjacent to the bridge, it runs parallel.
Okay.
There is a road that's adjacent to the bridge that runs underneath it.
Right.
Which is where we're going to get into the second story, or second lore, I guess you would say. Some think that the trestle is closed today. However, it is actually one of the main arteries into Louisville where they bring heavy freight in, day out, multiple times a day. In turns, this kind of makes it extremely easy for people to get caught on top of it and not be able to escape. I mean, I'll send you a picture of it. There's nowhere to go. If a train's coming, either you hold on and you got some great grip strength, or you're going to die if you can't outrun that train.
I mean, if you're holding on, think about how long it takes a train to
That's what I'm saying, especially if they're hauling heavy freight. To this day, there are signs and there are fences with razor wire on top to prevent people from climbing the trestle.
Oh, wow. Razor wire.
Yeah, they put razor wire up recently.
Okay.
However, it doesn't stop people from doing it. You know, you still got those daredevils and people that will say, oh, I've done it.
Right.
And then there's another version of the story that goes into how all the car wrecks and things underneath the bridge ensue. And that's the Pope Lick monster himself would stage on top of the trestle. And as a car's coming by, he would jump on the road and make them swerve off.
Interesting.
But, you know, this is a legend that'll always stay with Louisville. And if you read into it a little more, it does go into more detail and things of that nature. And there are encounters with this quote unquote goat man. But I thought it was pretty cool. That's why this was one of the ones I wanted to pick for this episode.
I like that one. I definitely like that one. I'm going to go into from there. It's going to be Bethlehem Academy. This is in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Bethlehem Academy. This was a mansion that was built in 1818. In 1830, Mother Agnes of the Sisters of Loreto turned this mansion into a boarding school for girls. Then they added another wing onto the mansion in 1848. When they did that, it was able to house 75 girls full time. So they lived there all the time and attended school there. And another 25 girls that lived at home would come during the day to attend school with them. The school stopped teaching high school education in 1951 and continued teaching elementary school education until it was closed in 1959. So from 1959 on, this mansion that it was turned into several different things. It was a bed and breakfast at one time. It's been several things.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about now.
There was a guy that bought this mansion and started renovating it in 1970. He worked on it until 1980, but never finished his renovations. He had artists come in, paint murals on the walls. He was wanting to turn it into an artist haven for artists. But 1980, that all went down the drain. Do not know why, but that's where it's at.
There's
now.
got to be some kind of reason behind it. I mean, you don't just buy a place and have all intentions to renovate it and then just completely stop for no reason.
Well, and worked on it for 10 years.
Yeah, that's what's crazy.
So a couple of this one's going to be a more of a little lore one also that you got, because there's no facts of some of the things that's happened.
Right.
So there's like any lore, you're gonna have the locals, as you know, they have the tales of this stuff. So according to some of the locals of the Bethlehem Academy, there was a story that there were 3 nuns who were brutally murdered over a misunderstanding. Some people have this as a suicide pact between 2 of the nuns who couldn't live with the horrible secrets of the place. There's stories of an escaped ox from a nearby farm who charged and trampled some of the nuns to death. But every one of these stories, there's no evidence of them. There's nothing to say that they're true stories, not true stories. It's the lore of the place.
Kind of hearsay.
Yeah. But they say there's still unexplainable phenomenon that continues to happen there, even till this day. There's been reports of a nun that appears in one of the main windows, as well as walking around outside of the academy.
Didn't they do a paranormal investigation on this place? I can't remember what episode or what TV show it was, but I'm pretty sure I watched a TV show that was on this actual place here.
Well, there is, and I'll get to it at the end of the address and some phone numbers on this one, but yes, there's been a bunch of them there, and you can actually take private tours of the place now.
No kidding.
And do private paranormal investigations here.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
That would be. There are reports of nuns being seen that are transparent with solid black eyes. There's some of them that they say they see nuns with just, instead of eyes, they have gaping holes.
Kind of like a demonic figure or something?
Something of the sorts. There's, just like any of these places, people feel cold spots a lot in different places throughout the academy. The academy was a restaurant at one point in time also, and people reported that there was chairs that would slide around. There were pieces of jewelry from people would disappear, and then they would be found in just odd, weird, and impossible places of how did it get there when it was found. As I said, it was a bed and breakfast at one time, and so with those, you're going to have people spending the night there, and there was people that would report hearing children crying. They would hear footsteps. They would hear any of the kind of stuff that goes along with it. They would hear the nuns walking up and down the hall, different things of that sort. Legend has it that many of the long dead nuns that used to work at Bethlehem Academy are now buried at the Gates of Hell Cemetery, or Casey Cemetery. That's another spot. I did read about that one too. That's another one of the spots in Kentucky, which can be found a little further down the street on St. John Road. However, most of the gravestones are weathered down, broken, very old, so you can't really read them to make out if the nuns were actually buried there or not. I'm sure there's a record of it if they are. The phenomenons that happen there, same thing as like you was going over Waverly Hills. People have claimed daylight, dark, it don't matter. But it's different times of the day when they've seen it. This place, currently, it is a private property. Criminal trespassing is not permitted there.
Unless you have a like you said, private tour.
Yep, you can get private tours, and they can be arranged with the current owner on their website or by emailing them.
I guess that would be like some of the insane asylums that are around the world. You have to have a private tour to get into them and things of that nature.
And there's a lot of those that do that. Didn't you say Waverly Hills has that as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And this one does. If anybody's interested, Bethlehem Academy 1818 at gmail.com, or go to Bethlehem Academy's website. Then you could get any kind of information there if you wanted. If that's a place that's interesting to you that you want to go investigate. That's all I have for Bethlehem Academy. If you got another one?
I have one more, and I'm saving this one because it's not well known about, but it is one of the hot spots in Kentucky. And it starred on the TV series Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Bobby Mackey's Music World.
All right.
They classify this as possibly being the most haunted bar in the country.
Oh, nice.
So there's a hole in the floor that's been there since the building was formed, and they call it the portal to hell.
So just a hole in the floor?
It's I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Yeah, I'll get to it. So
we're just gonna throw a rug over that and act like that hole's not there,
right? Well, it's actually in the basement, and nobody goes into the basement anymore. Basement's actually closed off now.
Okay.
So on their website, they actually have a website, and on their website it says, "Come for the spirits, but plan to stay for a show." Nice. This cool spot is a music lover's dream and is among the most haunted places in Kentucky. You can visit the place at 44 Licking Pike in Wilder, Kentucky. Basically, a little backstory and history of it. There was a country singer called Robert Randall Mackey. They called him Bobby for short. He built the large building to fulfill an old dream of his to play live at his own place and at his own pace. He had no idea what he was getting himself into. Deep below the building lurked a dark basement with a well that many called the gateway to hell. With all of the dark history that this building contains, it's no surprise that Mackey's is now one of the most haunted places in America. Mackey's is actually located right next to a railroad track. I can't remember what the name of the railroad track is. But outside of the building looks like every other bar or restaurant in a small town. White paint, bricks, things like that. But as soon as you step into the bar, there's actually a sign that they put up that says, "Warning to our patrons. This establishment is purported to be haunted. Management is not responsible and cannot be held liable for any actions of any ghosts/spirits on this premises." End quote.
That's one of the best signs ever.
Right? So in 1850, a slaughterhouse meat packaging plant was constructed on that land. It was a rather large slaughterhouse, and in the basement of the building sat a well. At the time, the well was used to dispose of the slaughtered animals' bloods and guts and waste. It wasn't like, it's not like a water well. It's just like a deep freaking hole to nothing. Later in...
So is this like Mel's Hole? Do you know Mel's Hole?
I haven't heard of that one.
We'll cover that later.
Oh, that would be good.
I love Mel's Hole.
Yeah, we'll have to cover that for sure. Later in the 1890s, for reasons unknown, the slaughterhouse was shut down abruptly. The well was just left to sit there, never to be filled, day in and day out, year after year, until it was made a key part in ritualistic sacrifices by many different satanic cults. Many of these rituals are known to be involved with what researchers say to be both animal and human sacrifices, possibly even disabled children. On top of that, the Satanists would do this in order to prove their loyalty to the devil himself and gain his favor. One of the many people who have been known to wander these corridors is Pearl Bryan. She was actually beheaded by her roommate, or quote unquote, beheaded by one of her roommates, Alonzo Walling. And there's been other occurrences and other cases in this. I just didn't want to go too long on it. For possibly being impregnated by him. So, a little backstory. Pearl's father was actually a Methodist preacher at the time, and he shunned her, looked down on her because she was pregnant, so she wanted to get rid of the baby. Or she didn't want to because her dad was making her keep the baby for having sex outside of marriage. But Alonzo wanted her to have an abortion, and he said that he would do anything in his will to make her not have that baby. This is where it gets really weird. I said that she was beheaded, and it's thought that her head was actually disposed in the well under the bar. Because they didn't live, they lived just right around the corner from the bar. So this is a real life encounter from the current Mackey's owner, his wife actually. When she was pregnant, she'd stay at the bar, help her husband manage the place, pick up drinks, clean tables, things of that nature.
Right.
And then one day, while she was vacuuming the stairs of the building, she felt the arms of a man wrap around her waist. Her first thought was, oh, it's probably Bobby. But when she turned around, there was no one there.
Oh, wicked.
Panic set in when she felt the arms pick her up, and the next thing she knew, she was thrown down the stairs.
Oh, wow.
When asked what happened, she described the spirit as a man who fit the description of Alonzo Walling, who she had never seen or heard of before, one of the students that killed Pearl. She said that he screamed at her, get out," in a very aggressive and aggravated way. She's still the wife of the current owner, but she will refuse to to step foot in the bar ever again, whether she be there by herself or with anybody else accompanying her. She's the one, if I'm not mistaken, I think she's the one that actually came up with the sign to post in that bar.
I bet she did after that.
I mean, dude, could you imagine having just some random thing just pick you up and throw you down the stairs?
That'd be one freaking heck of a story you're going to tell everybody, isn't it?
But I think this is where it gets, like, she was pregnant. So, I mean, it kind of does fit the same MO, I guess you would say, of Alonzo there with Pearl.
Was there any more pregnant women stories that you saw?
That's the only one I saw. There was another one of two people. I didn't really get a chance to read into it, but it is definitely something that y'all might want to go check out. Bobby Mackey, actually, if you Google Bobby Mackey's Music World, they do have a website, and there are links and things of that nature. You can read all the encounters, things of that nature.
And you said this is still operational today?
Yeah, it's still operational. They did hold that place, and they moved to another place, I think, while there was renovations going on. I don't know if it's still going on or not, but that is something to keep in mind. But that's all the ones I've got for tonight's episode. What do you have anything else?
I got one last one.
Well, let's get it.
So the last one I have is Talbott Tavern. This is still in operation today. This is located at 107 West Stephen Foster Avenue in Bardstown, Kentucky. It's still an operating tavern, an inn, and a restaurant. This has been a historic tavern since 1779. It has laid claim to being the oldest Western stagecoach stop in America. Most of the stories that's going to take place in this tavern also are going to be the classic stories for the taverns and inns about hearing sounds. We got moving objects, like in the restaurant, there are people see forks, glasses, stuff like that just slide across the table like somebody's moving it, but nobody's touching it.
Not to cut you off, but have there been any like aggravated cases there that you were able to find? I'm sure there probably is, but you might have to do some digging.
Yeah, you have to probably do some digging to really get the tea on it, I guess you'd say. But I'm going to have a couple. I'm going to have one of the more interesting ones I saw. I'm going to go over.
Awesome.
One of the ones that they lay claim to. So this is an inn. So at the front desk where they keep the keys will go missing from the front desk and show up later that day and just laying in a hallway, outside, whatever. Keys will just go missing and show up.
So almost like somebody from the past is trying to get into the room, and
maybe so.
It's weird.
People say that they have seen furniture shaking and moving. It's even said one of the people saw furniture, they said, bouncing. There are also people see shadows down halls or whatnot. They'll see shadows come out of a corner, and the shadow will walk and move into the light. And from their description, you see the shadow move out of the darkness into the light, and then it'll just disappear like a shadow person.
Mm-hmm.
Same MO as other places. Doors opening, closing, hearing footsteps up and down a hall. There's a piano in the inn. The piano will start playing music with nobody there to play the piano.
That would kind of spook me a little bit, honestly. If you're just standing there in the lounge and next thing you know, the piano started playing and there's nobody there.
If I'm in a place and I hear footsteps going up and down the hall, I hear doors open and close, I don't really think too much about that. I mean, whatever. If it's Right. Even with the piano, if I hear a ding, bing, bong, whatever, still, I would find it very interesting and I would want to go check it out.
But at the same time,
when they start playing a whole freaking song, that's
it. But you also got to think, like, so you know how a piano works, right?
Yeah.
What if a mouse or a rat or something got in there and started hitting the chords?
Right.
I mean, there are things
too much about that.
Yeah, there are things that could explain it, but if all that's been investigated and it's still freaking happening, it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
It's one thing if a mouse runs through there and it hits just a chord or two or whatever, but if you got Ratatouille quit cooking and he's in there playing now, that's a whole nother story.
That's the time you're gonna see Scott pack his stuff and get out of there.
I'm gonna read this one story. So this comes from a former bookkeeper. I'm just gonna read the story just like it's written. One night while closing, she started up the stairs to take the money to the safe, and was frightened when she saw a man standing in a long coat walk across the top landing. About the same time, the cook came along from the kitchen and also saw the stranger. They were both surprised, because no one else was supposed to be in the building. They went upstairs and followed him through several rooms and eventually saw him go through the fire escape door. When the bookkeeper and the cook went to open the door and see if he had gone down the fire escape, he was standing on the landing. He turned around to face her and started a hideous laugh and then disappeared right in front of both of their eyes. 2 people saw this happen. About 3 weeks later, she was watching a special on TV and they showed a picture of Jesse James. She grabbed her husband's arms and said, "Oh my God, that is the exact same face I saw the other night when the man disappeared in front of us." So ever since then, they have laid claim to they have the ghost of Jesse James in this inn. 2 other employees have claimed to have seen this man walking up and down the halls at different times. I'm not disputing her word, but I can't figure out why Jesse James would haunt this old building. He did come to Bardstown to visit family, and his cousin Donnie Pence, who was the local sheriff at the time. Local lore has it that Jesse stayed in this tavern, and he left bullet holes in the walls to prove of his visit. And the bullet holes are still there till this day. There has been a fire in this place before where they had damage on the second floor, smoke damage on the bottom. They did renovations. The bullet holes are still there. That's probably my favorite little story I heard out of there. I'm kind of with them. Why is Jesse James haunting this particular inn? But
yeah, that's pretty wicked.
I don't know if I might be with you on that. I can't remember. I was thinking that I used to know quite a few Jesse James stories, and he had somebody else that did something particular also, but I can't think of it right now. One other small thing about the tavern, there's also a lady in white ghost that's seen walking up and down the halls and seen around the inn. And she is wearing a 1800s style dress. So people will see this lady walking around. Yeah, that's all I have. That's the first of the 50 state haunt. And that was Kentucky. We will spin the wheel again. If that's something the viewers, y'all can, if y'all want to leave in the comments, if y'all enjoyed this, let us know that you did. Should we keep going with this series? Also, would y'all like to see the wheel spin? If y'all like this series and y'all want it to continue on, let us know. If y'all want to see the wheel spin, we'll record it. We'll put it in at the beginning of each episode of what state it's going to be.
And it actually might work out that way for our viewers. They can actually send recommendations for places that they want to hear about in each state.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we got Kentucky's in the books now. So, if you have stories, we'd love to hear them. But if you have stories from other states, we'd love to hear those also, and take it into consideration for those to be entered into the episode of that said state.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with that.
All right. Well, Scott, do you got anything else that you want to leave this with?
Only thing I could say is thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for being supportive. And we hope to get some comments and some feedback from you guys.
Absolutely. We do 100% on that. Well, everybody that tuned in, thank you for tuning in. And I guess we'll see you all on the next haunt. Good night.